The morning sun spilled golden light across the Carter family home, warming the kitchen where Emma Carter carefully packed sandwiches, juice boxes, and snacks into a large picnic basket. The smell of fresh bread and peanut butter lingered in the air, mixing with the faint aroma of brewed coffee. Her husband, Daniel, was busy wrangling the children into their shoes and jackets, smiling at the chaos that only a 6-year-old and a 10-year-old could create. "Lily, don't forget your hat," Emma called, holding up the wide-brimmed straw hat she had bought for her daughter the week before. Lily, with her long brown hair bouncing behind her, spun around in excitement and nearly tripped over the welcome mat. "I've got it, Mommy," she exclaimed, clutching the hat to her chest as if it were the most precious treasure in the world. Max, her older brother, rolled his eyes playfully but helped her secure it, adjusting the straps under her chin with exaggerated care. By the time they loaded the car, the sun was fully up, shining in a cloudless blue sky. The drive to Willow Creek Park was filled with laughter, chatter, and the occasional playful bickering. Lily sang a song she had made up about butterflies and fairies, while Max made exaggerated commentary about the rules of the park's playground, insisting that his little sister promised to follow them. Daniel glanced at Emma as he drove, a soft smile on his face. It was rare to have an entire day to themselves, away from work, school, and the never-ending tide of daily responsibilities. This day was meant to be perfect, a moment suspended in time, a memory to treasure forever. When they arrived, the park was alive with the sounds of summer. Children's laughter echoed from the playground, dogs barked and ran along the grassy fields, and the smell of barbecued meat drifted from nearby picnic areas. Families were sprawled across blankets, tossing frisbees or playing catch. The Carter family chose a spot under a large oak tree that cast a generous shadow, providing relief from the already warm sun. Daniel spread the blanket carefully, ensuring it was flat and free from twigs, while Emma set the picnic basket on top, arranging the food so that everything looked inviting and orderly. Lily immediately ran toward a cluster of wildflowers near the edge of the picnic area, her tiny hands brushing over the petals. "Look at all the butterflies," she shouted, her voice high and clear, filled with the uncontainable joy of childhood. Max followed, keeping a protective eye on her, reminding her not to wander too far. But Lily was fearless. She darted between the flowers, chased a particularly colorful butterfly, and laughed when it flew just out of reach. "Be careful, Lily," Emma called, standing up and brushing a loose strand of hair from her face. "Stay where we can see you." "I am," Lily replied without slowing her pace, twirling in the sunlight as the butterfly led her toward the forested edge of the park. Daniel and Max watched her, slightly tense but reassured by the presence of other families nearby. Everything seemed perfectly ordinary. Children ran and played all around them. Dogs were leashed or romping under the watchful eyes of their owners, and the gentle rustling of the leaves in the oak tree overhead created a calm, comforting background sound. After a few minutes, Daniel unpacked the kite they had brought, a large, colorful one with rainbow stripes. "Let's see if we can get this in the air," he said with a grin. He handed the spool to Max while Lily ran toward him, her eyes wide with excitement. Soon, the kite soared high above the park, dancing with the wind as Max and Daniel guided it with careful hands. Lily clapped and squealed with delight, her laughter blending with the rhythmic flapping of the kite. For a moment, everything felt suspended in a bubble of happiness. Then came the first flicker of unease, though no one realized it at the time. Lily ran ahead, chasing the kite's shadow as it danced across the grass. She slipped between two picnic areas and toward the wooded edge of the park, where the wildflowers grew taller and the trees cast longer, darker shadows. Max called out to her, his voice firm but not yet panicked. "Lily, don't go too far." She turned briefly, waving at him with a grin before running a few more steps. Daniel and Emma exchanged a glance, a fleeting moment of doubt. "She's fine," Daniel said, but his tone carried a hint of worry he tried to mask. Emma nodded, forcing a smile, though she felt a tightening in her chest. They had taught her about boundaries, about staying close, but children, especially energetic ones like Lily, often ignored rules in moments of pure joy. Lily ran a little farther, reaching a small clearing near the edge of the woods. The area was partially hidden from the main picnic field, shielded by thick bushes and a scattering of young trees. She crouched to watch a butterfly land on a flower, completely absorbed in the tiny, delicate creature. The sounds of the park, distant laughter, dogs barking, parents calling, faded into the background. Minutes passed. Max continued flying the kite, occasionally glancing toward Lily but focused on keeping it aloft. Daniel unpacked the sandwiches, and Emma arranged the plates and napkins, trying to maintain the sense of normalcy. Then, when Emma looked up to check on Lily, her heart stopped. She was gone. "Lily," Emma called, louder this time, her voice carrying a sudden edge of panic. Max looked toward the wooded area, squinting, but saw nothing. Daniel jumped up, scanning the field frantically. "Where is she?" he muttered, almost to himself, fear creeping into his voice. Emma ran toward the edge of the trees, calling Lily's name over and over. Each second stretched unbearably long. The laughter, the sunshine, the perfect day, they all seemed like a distant memory now, replaced by a sudden, terrifying void. The other families nearby noticed the commotion. Some came over to help, offering to search with them, scanning the picnic areas, asking if they had seen the little girl. Daniel grabbed his phone, calling the police while continuing to scan every corner of the park. The operator's calm voice on the other end seemed almost surreal, reassuring yet powerless against the gut-wrenching fear that gripped him. Emma's knees felt weak as she ran, stumbling over tree roots and uneven grass, searching the places she thought Lily might have gone. Every minute that passed felt like an eternity. A jogger who had been running along the path approached them, pointing toward the creek near the far edge of the park. "I think I saw a little girl near there," he said. "She looked like she was holding hands with a man in a baseball cap." Daniel's stomach twisted, and Emma clutched her chest. The description didn't match anyone they knew. They called out to the jogger, asking for more details, but by the time they turned back, he had continued on his run. Other parents joined the frantic search, calling Lily's name, checking behind trees and playground equipment, scanning every corner. The park, once cheerful and vibrant, was now a scene of tension and fear. The police arrived quickly, blocking entrances and setting up search perimeters. K-9 units were brought in, and within minutes, officers began systematically combing the park, checking every nook, cranny, and shadowy space that a child might hide in, or be taken to. Despite the growing number of searches, Lily remained unseen. Panic turned to desperation, and desperation turned to terror. Emma's voice grew hoarse from shouting, and Daniel's hands trembled as he held onto the hope that she was somewhere close, just hiding or lost, not in danger. But deep down, a gnawing fear settled in. What if she wasn't nearby? As the day wore on, volunteers arrived from nearby neighborhoods, bringing flashlights and supplies, forming search parties that scoured every inch of the park and its surrounding woods. Drones were deployed, capturing aerial footage to help track any possible movement. Every lead, no matter how small, was followed with meticulous care. Still, the hours passed with no sign of Lily. By the time evening came, the sun had begun to dip below the horizon, casting long shadows across the park. The joyful sounds of the day were replaced with the quiet hum of tense conversation and muffled sobs. Emma and Daniel sat on the edge of the empty picnic blanket, clutching each other, exhausted and heartbroken. Their perfect day had turned into a nightmare they could not have imagined, and the world around them seemed suddenly cold, dark, and uncertain. It was a day that had started with laughter, sunlight, and the carefree joy of childhood, and ended with an unthinkable loss, a missing child, a frantic search, and a sense of dread that no parent should ever have to experience. And though the night would fall, the search would continue, and with it, the haunting question, where was Lily Carter, and who had taken her, if anyone at all? The morning after Lily Carter disappeared was heavy with tension. The sky was a dull gray, the sun struggling to break through low clouds, as if nature itself sensed the unease that had settled over Willow Creek Park. The Carter family had barely slept, haunted by the image of their little girl vanishing in the blink of an eye. Emma and Daniel sat at the kitchen table, cups of cold coffee untouched, each lost in their own spiraling thoughts. The house felt empty, every creak of the floorboards echoing too loudly, as if it mocked their fear. Police had arrived early, even before sunrise, organizing search teams and reviewing the events from the previous day. Detectives knocked on neighbors' doors, interviewed park visitors, and began mapping out the area to understand exactly where Lily had been last seen. Every piece of information mattered, no matter how small. Emma tried to remember every detail, every fleeting moment before Lily ran toward the wildflowers. She could replay it over and over in her mind, each time hoping a new memory would reveal something she hadn't noticed. But the moments felt fragmented, almost like pieces of a puzzle that refused to fit together. Detective Karen Shaw, the lead investigator on the case, was calm but visibly concerned. She had dealt with missing children before, but something about this case struck her differently. Perhaps it was the innocence of the situation, the fact that a simple family picnic had turned into a nightmare. She gathered her team at the park, pointing toward the dense woods that bordered the eastern side, where Lily had last been seen. "We need to cover every inch of that area," she said. "She could be hiding. She could be scared. And we have to assume the worst until we know otherwise." Search dogs were brought in first, trained to pick up even the faintest scent of a child. The lead dog, a German shepherd named Rex, immediately reacted near the small creek at the edge of the park. His handler followed him as Rex sniffed and tugged on the leash, moving slowly into the woods. Minutes later, the dog stopped abruptly, barking and pawing at a bush. There, caught among the branches, was a small red backpack, Lily's backpack. Emma rushed to the scene, tears blurring her vision. She held the backpack in her hands, feeling its familiar weight, searching inside for any clue. The contents were intact: half-eaten sandwiches, a small stuffed toy, a few crayons, and a drawing she had made the day before. Everything seemed normal, yet the absence of Lily made it impossible to see it as ordinary. Daniel knelt beside her, gently holding her shoulder, trying to offer comfort, though the fear in his eyes mirrored her own. Detectives examined the scene carefully. The backpack appeared untouched, as if placed there deliberately. There were no signs of a struggle, no footprints leading directly from the site. It was almost as if Lily had vanished into thin air. Shaw frowned. Either she left it herself, or someone staged it. Either way, it tells us nothing about where she is now. Meanwhile, officers interviewed dozens of parkgoers. Some reported seeing a girl matching Lily's description running around the picnic areas. Others mentioned a man in a baseball cap who had been lingering near the trees, though no one could agree on exactly what he was doing. One jogger recalled seeing a small girl holding hands with an unfamiliar adult near the creek, echoing the report Daniel and Emma had heard the day before. But when police traced the man, he insisted he had simply waved at the child, thinking she looked lost, before sending her back toward the other families. His story seemed plausible, yet the details didn't align perfectly. Shaw knew that even the smallest inconsistency could matter in cases like this. The hours passed, and the search expanded. Volunteers combed the park, using flashlights to peer into the shadows and calling Lily's name over and over. Helicopters hovered above, scanning the dense tree lines with thermal cameras. But the sun began to sink, and still, no child was found. The tension among the searchers was palpable. Each person who had come to help could feel the fear growing with every empty corner, every shadow that seemed to hide more than just darkness. By mid-afternoon, the investigation turned toward nearby areas. If Lily had wandered off, she could have ventured into the residential streets beyond the park or the forested trails that stretched for miles. Detectives began mapping possible routes, checking security cameras from nearby stores, and interviewing passers-by who might have seen something unusual. Every detail mattered, every second counted, and yet the trail seemed to grow colder by the hour. Then came a strange development. One of the search teams discovered a small set of footprints near the edge of the creek, partially obscured by mud and fallen leaves. At first, it appeared they were Lily's, tiny and uneven, but upon closer inspection, the pattern suggested that an adult had been there as well. It was subtle, almost imperceptible, but to experienced eyes, it was enough to suggest that Lily had not been alone. The possibility that someone had been following her, or worse, that she had been taken, sent a chill through the investigators. Detective Shaw called Emma and Daniel to the park, carefully explaining what they had found. Emma felt her stomach drop. She had hoped that Lily had simply wandered, hiding behind trees or bushes, but the idea that a stranger might have been involved made her feel helpless. Daniel's jaw tightened, and he clenched his fists, fighting the urge to run into the woods himself. Shaw's voice was firm but gentle. "We're doing everything we can. The fact that we have a scent trail and the backpack gives us something to work with. We will find her." Despite their fear, the Carters cooperated fully with the investigation. Emma walked with the detective through the park, retracing the steps she remembered Lily taking, while Daniel provided as many details as he could about her clothing, the backpack, and what she had been carrying. Even small details mattered, whether Lily had worn shoes with Velcro or laces, whether she had any distinguishing marks, or if she had said anything unusual during the day. Every answer could be the key to bringing her home. As evening approached, the search took on a surreal quality. The woods that had seemed so inviting during the day now felt dark and threatening, every shadow stretching unnaturally long. Volunteers carried flashlights, their beams cutting through the gloom, illuminating fallen branches and uneven ground. The air was thick with the scent of damp earth and decaying leaves. Emma and Daniel followed cautiously, their eyes scanning every tree trunk, every bush, every shadow that might conceal their daughter. The anxiety of the day gave way to exhaustion, but neither of them could rest. They couldn't stop moving, couldn't stop hoping that Lily would appear from the darkness, smiling and unafraid. Then, as night fell, a new lead emerged. A park employee came forward, saying that he had noticed a small figure moving near the wooded edge earlier that morning, almost hidden among the trees. He couldn't make out details, but he thought the figure might have been a child. Detectives immediately retraced the path, hoping it would connect with the footprints found near the creek. For the first time since the disappearance, there was a glimmer of possibility, a thread that could lead them closer to Lily. Back at the police station, investigators began reviewing all collected evidence. Security footage from nearby businesses showed the park's parking lot and surrounding streets, but there was no clear image of Lily or any suspicious vehicle. Interviews with park visitors were compiled and compared, looking for patterns or contradictions. Each minute of footage, each statement, was examined with painstaking detail. Shaw paced the room, frustration and determination mingling in her expression. "We're not missing anything. We have to catch every detail, every small clue," she muttered to her team. Meanwhile, the community rallied in ways both touching and heartbreaking. Flyers bearing Lily's photo were plastered on telephone poles, stores, and social media platforms. Volunteers patrolled the park in shifts, their concern matched by their exhaustion. Messages of support poured in from neighboring towns. The story of a missing 6-year-old girl had touched a nerve, reminding everyone how fragile and precious childhood was, and how quickly it could be threatened. As the night deepened, Emma and Daniel returned home, physically drained but unable to sleep. They sat together in the dim glow of the living room, holding hands and staring at the darkened streets outside. The uncertainty was unbearable. They went over every moment of the previous day, every glance, every decision, wondering if they could have prevented this, if they could have been more attentive, if they had missed some tiny warning sign. The weight of guilt pressed on them, even though rationally they knew that no parent could have anticipated such an event. And yet, in the shadows of their grief, a small spark of hope persisted. Lily's backpack had been found. There were footprints, faint but present. Someone, somewhere, had seen something. The investigation was just beginning, and though the night was long and filled with fear, the Carters clung to the belief that they would find their daughter, that she would come home. Unbeknownst to them, the coming days would reveal even darker secrets. The clues gathered in the shadows of Willow Creek Park would slowly piece together a chilling story, one that would uncover the presence of a stranger lurking among unsuspecting families, waiting for the perfect opportunity. And though the hope of finding Lily remained, the realization that danger had been closer than anyone imagined would haunt the Carters, the community, and the investigators alike. In the quiet hours of the night, the park stood empty and still, the trees whispering in the wind as if holding secrets only they knew. The sun had set on a day of fear and uncertainty, and tomorrow would bring new leads, new questions, and a relentless search for the child who had disappeared during what had begun as the perfect family picnic. The morning air was crisp, carrying the scent of damp earth and freshly cut grass. Willow Creek Park, which had seemed lively and cheerful just days ago, now felt like a place frozen in tension. The disappearance of Lily Carter had left a shadow over the town. Parents brought their children to the park with cautious eyes, and families whispered warnings to one another as they spread out their blankets. The innocence of the park had vanished, replaced by unease, suspicion, and fear. Detective Karen Shaw arrived early that morning, coffee in hand, eyes scanning the park as officers set up search grids along the wooded edges. Every corner of the area would be searched again, and this time, nothing could be overlooked. Shaw knew that in missing child cases, every minute counted, and every detail mattered. She had pored over statements from witnesses, analyzed footprints, and studied the backpack and other evidence found at the creek. But something gnawed at her, the sense that there was more to this disappearance than a simple wandering-off incident. It was around mid-morning when the first anonymous tip arrived at the station, carried by a shaky-voiced man who refused to give his name. He claimed that on the day Lily disappeared, he had noticed a black van parked near the wooded trail. The vehicle had tinted windows, and a man with dark sunglasses had been sitting inside, occasionally glancing toward the picnic areas. The description sent a chill down Detective Shaw's spine. The tip was vague, but the details matched the reports from the jogger and other witnesses, details that had seemed inconsequential at first. The detectives immediately began tracing the black van. It wasn't long before they discovered that it had been reported stolen a week prior in a neighboring town. Surveillance cameras from convenience stores and traffic intersections confirmed the van's presence near Willow Creek Park at the same time the Carters were enjoying their picnic. Shaw's heart sank. The presence of the stolen van suggested intent. This wasn't a random encounter. Someone had been there, watching, possibly planning. Meanwhile, Emma and Daniel were overwhelmed by a mix of relief and terror. The possibility that someone had been watching their family, waiting for an opportunity, was horrifying. They sat in the small police interview room, trying to remember every interaction from the day of the picnic. Emma recalled the man who had walked along the path near the creek, the baseball cap pulled low over his forehead, eyes scanning the area as if he were looking for something, or someone. Daniel remembered the feeling of unease that had crept over him when he noticed a shadow near the trees, a figure standing unnaturally still. At the time, they had dismissed it, thinking it was just another parent or a jogger passing by. Now, those fleeting moments seemed significant. The detectives widened the investigation. They interviewed neighbors near the park, looking for anyone who might have seen the mysterious man before or after the disappearance. One elderly woman recalled seeing him several times in the weeks prior, lingering near the park's wooded edge, sometimes watching children from a distance. "He never said a word," she said, her voice trembling. "He just stared. It gave me the creeps." Another parent described him as polite but strange, always polite enough to not raise suspicion, yet too deliberate in his movements. These seemingly small details formed a disturbing picture. Shaw and her team began combing through criminal records in the surrounding counties. They were searching for anyone who matched the description of the man or who had a history that might connect him to child-related crimes. After hours of digging, they uncovered something alarming. A man named Victor Harlan, who fit the description of the van driver, had a history of attempted abductions and had been under investigation for child-luring incidents across several towns. He had not been convicted, but the pattern of behavior was clear. Law enforcement had never been able to fully stop him, and now, according to evidence and witness statements, he was once again in the area, near Willow Creek Park, the day Lily disappeared. The detectives moved quickly. They scoured local roads, parking lots, and side streets for any sign of the black van. It had vanished as quickly as it had appeared, leaving no immediate trace. Investigators began canvassing the neighborhood surrounding the park, showing Lily's picture to anyone who might have seen something unusual. They asked residents about unfamiliar vehicles, strangers who might have lingered near the park, and anyone who could have noticed suspicious activity. While some neighbors recalled nothing unusual, a few remembered a dark-colored van parked for hours near the forest trail, the driver sitting quietly inside, appearing to be waiting. As the hours turned into the evening, a new revelation emerged. Surveillance cameras from a small convenience store a mile from the park captured the black van leaving the area around the time Lily had disappeared. The footage showed the driver checking his rearview mirror repeatedly, almost as if he knew someone was following. Detectives enhanced the video, hoping to catch a glimpse of the man's face. Though the tinted windows obscured clear identification, the shape of his profile and his movements were consistent with previous witness statements. It was a breakthrough, the first concrete piece of evidence that confirmed what the detectives had feared. Lily had not simply wandered off. Someone had been there with intent. The news hit the Carters hard. Emma sat on a bench outside the station, holding her hands over her mouth, trying to process the reality of the situation. Daniel paced nearby, fists clenched, struggling to contain his fear and anger. The thought that a stranger, possibly dangerous, had been watching their daughter, tracking her movements, and waiting for the perfect moment to act was unbearable. Emma tried to focus on the hope that the police would catch him and bring Lily home safely, but the fear gnawed at her relentlessly. Detective Shaw and her team worked tirelessly through the night. They coordinated with neighboring jurisdictions, checking for any reports of similar vehicles or suspicious activity. Officers set up checkpoints and interviewed local drivers, hoping to catch a glimpse of the van. Tips poured in from anonymous sources, some helpful, some misleading, but every possibility was considered. Shaw knew that the window of opportunity for finding Lily safely was narrowing, and time was their greatest enemy. By the next morning, the investigation had taken on a new urgency. Officers reviewed old missing child cases, looking for patterns that might connect Harlan to other incidents. They discovered that in previous attempts, he had often chosen areas where families gathered, blending in with crowds before attempting to isolate a child. His methods were calculated, patient, and chillingly precise. The thought that Lily had been caught in one of these predatory patterns sent shivers through the entire team. Meanwhile, search teams continued to comb the woods and trails near the park. Volunteers walked line after line of forest, calling Lily's name, scanning under bushes, behind tree trunks, and along narrow paths. Every now and then, a searcher would spot something, a scrap of paper, a shoe, a piece of clothing, but none of it was Lily. Each false lead was heartbreaking, yet every step was necessary. The detectives knew that finding her quickly was crucial for her safety. Late in the day, a new witness came forward. A young woman who had been walking her dog near the park reported seeing a man matching the description of Harlan behaving strangely. He had been watching children from a distance, lingering near picnic areas, and occasionally glancing toward the trees where Lily had last been seen. Though she didn't witness any direct interaction with the child, the report reinforced the detective's theory that Harlan had been planning something for days, if not weeks. The investigation reached a critical point when the stolen black van was spotted by a highway patrol officer several towns away. It was abandoned in a secluded lot, the engine cold, doors locked, and no signs of the driver or a child. For the detectives, this raised more questions than answers. Had Harlan fled with Lily? Or had something caused him to leave the van behind? The uncertainty intensified the fear that Lily could be anywhere, and the sense of urgency became almost unbearable. Throughout it all, the Carters clung to hope. They attended briefings, met with the detectives, and shared memories of Lily, anything that could help the investigation. Emma described the small stuffed bunny Lily always carried, the purple sneakers with butterfly patterns, the little hat she had worn on the day of the picnic. Daniel went over the timeline repeatedly, pinpointing every moment Lily had been in sight and every second she had been out of it. Their determination to aid the search became a lifeline for both themselves and the detectives. By the end of the third day, a pattern was emerging. Harlan, the stranger in the park, had been present before, during, and after Lily's disappearance. His vehicle, his behavior, and the eyewitness accounts all painted a chilling picture. The detectives were convinced he had been the one watching the Carters, waiting for the moment when Lily would be briefly alone. And yet, despite all the evidence, there was still no trace of the girl. As night fell again over Willow Creek Park, the air was thick with anxiety. The trees whispered in the wind, shadows stretching long across empty fields. Families had left, leaving only the echoes of a park now haunted by fear. Emma and Daniel returned home once more, exhausted, clutching each other as if their embrace could shield them from the nightmare outside. Detective Shaw reviewed the case files, the maps, the surveillance footage, and the witness statements, trying to connect every dot, every clue, and every shadow into a coherent picture that would lead them to Lily. In those quiet hours, The sense of dread was overwhelming. The Carters wondered whether their daughter was safe, whether she was being watched, or whether Harlan had already carried out his plan. The park, once a symbol of joy and family togetherness, had become a place of horror, a reminder that danger often hides in plain sight. Yet, amidst the fear, a single thread of hope remained. Lily had survived the first crucial hours. If the detectives could follow the evidence, interpret the clues correctly, and anticipate Harlan's moves, there was still a chance she could be found alive. And so, as the night deepened, Willow Creek Park lay in silence, holding its secrets tightly. The stranger in the park had revealed himself only through fleeting glimpses, stolen moments, and careful observation. But the detectives, the Carters, and the community were determined not to let the shadows hide him forever. The search for Lily would continue, and the story of a perfect family picnic that had turned into a nightmare was far from over. The days following Lily Carter's disappearance stretched into a haze of exhaustion, fear, and relentless searching. Willow Creek Park, once a vibrant and lively place, had become a labyrinth of worry, where every shadow seemed to hide the unknown and every rustle of leaves carried a sinister possibility. Volunteers and police combed the park, the surrounding woods, and even the streets in neighboring towns, calling Lily's name until their voices were hoarse. The community was on edge, with social media filled with missing person alerts, flyers plastered on every lamppost and store window, and news crews gathering to report on the unfolding tragedy. Emma and Daniel Carter existed in a state of perpetual panic, each day blending into the next without a clear distinction. Sleep was scarce, meals were hurried, and every phone call brought a surge of hope that quickly crashed into despair. Detective Karen Shaw, while professional and calm on the surface, worked tirelessly behind the scenes, coordinating search efforts, analyzing tips, and investigating every lead, no matter how small. But even she had to admit that the case was unlike any other she had worked on. There were too many missing pieces, and the clues that had been gathered so far painted a picture that was chillingly ambiguous. On the third day after the disappearance, a break in the case arrived almost unexpectedly. A young woman walking her dog along a trail just outside the park noticed something unusual. Her dog, a small terrier with sharp instincts, barked insistently at a fallen tree near the forested edge. She paused, curious, and saw a small figure huddled behind the trunk. The figure was trembling, its movements tentative, almost fearful. At first, she thought it might be another lost child wandering in the woods, but as she approached cautiously, the reality of the situation hit her. It was a little girl, and she was alone. Emma and Daniel were notified immediately, and the Carters rushed to the scene, guided by the young woman and police officers. The world seemed to slow as they approached the area where their daughter had been hiding. Lily looked up at the approaching figures with wide, tear-streaked eyes. Her tiny hands clutched a small stuffed bunny she had carried with her that day. Her knee scraped and dirty from crawling through underbrush and fallen leaves. Relief and terror collided as Emma scooped her daughter into her arms, holding her close, tears streaming down both their faces. Daniel knelt beside them, unable to speak at first, overwhelmed by the sight of Lily, alive, after what had seemed like an eternity. Once Lily was safely back in her parents' arms, the investigators began piecing together what had actually happened. The truth was both horrifying and miraculous. Lily had wandered toward the edge of the woods during the picnic, drawn by the colorful wildflowers and butterflies she had loved so much. Unbeknownst to her, Victor Harlan, the man identified through the black van and eyewitness accounts, had been lurking nearby. He had intended to abduct her, following the calculated patterns seen in his past attempts. However, when Lily ran into the denser part of the forest, she had managed to evade him. Harlan, aware that other families and park visitors were present, had retreated, leaving her alone. For hours, Lily had hidden behind fallen trees and thick brush, too frightened to make a sound or move toward safety. The investigation revealed that she had listened for the sounds of other children, identifying when it was safe to come out of hiding. She had avoided Harlan entirely, instinctively following her instincts for survival. The police and volunteers had been searching nearby, but the dense woods and the careful choice of hiding spots had kept her out of sight. Every step she had taken had been guided by fear, intuition, and an innate sense of self-preservation. Detective Shaw and her team reviewed the evidence carefully. The abandoned backpack found days earlier had likely been dropped as Lily moved deeper into the forest, a subconscious act that left a clue for the search teams. The footprints that had been discovered near the creek indicated a brief encounter with an adult, most likely Harlan, who had attempted to follow her but had been forced to retreat. The stolen black van, abandoned miles away, suggested that Harlan had initially considered taking her by vehicle but changed his plan when the risk of being caught became too great. The revelation of Harlan's presence in the park shocked the community. A man with a history of child predation had been watching families, waiting for the right opportunity. The thought that he had been so close to successfully harming a child sent waves of fear and outrage throughout the town. Neighbors, parents, and volunteers all grappled with the knowledge that danger had been lurking in plain sight, concealed behind polite appearances and ordinary behavior. It was a chilling reminder of the hidden threats that can exist even in the most familiar and seemingly safe places. Emma and Daniel, while overwhelmed with relief that Lily was unharmed, struggled to process the depth of what had happened. The idea that their daughter had been so close to danger without their knowledge was almost too much to bear. Emma repeatedly replayed the day of the picnic in her mind, wondering if there had been signs they had missed, moments where they could have intervened. Daniel, though equally shaken, tried to focus on the present, reassuring himself and his wife that Lily's survival was a miracle. Their emotions were a tangled mix of relief, guilt, fear, and gratitude, all swirling together in a way that left them exhausted yet profoundly grateful. For Lily, the experience was terrifying yet transformative. She had faced a situation beyond her understanding, yet she had relied on her instincts and courage to survive. Police officers gently questioned her, careful to avoid traumatizing her further, trying to understand the sequence of events that had allowed her to evade Harlan. Her description was simple and childlike. She remembered a man watching from behind trees, a vehicle with dark windows, and the way she had crouched behind a fallen log, holding her bunny tightly and waiting for it to be safe. Every detail she offered helped the detectives reconstruct the scenario and anticipate Harlan's movements. Once the immediate safety of Lily was assured, authorities turned their attention to Harlan. Using the evidence gathered, witness accounts, the stolen van, and security footage, they tracked him to a nearby town, where he was found hiding in a rundown apartment complex. Harlan was arrested without incident, his criminal history and the evidence of his presence near Willow Creek Park making the charges straightforward. The community reacted with relief, though the knowledge of how close he had come to abducting Lily lingered like a shadow. The investigation also revealed unsettling truths about Harlan's past. He had been under scrutiny for years, yet had repeatedly managed to avoid conviction. In each case, his methods were eerily similar. He targeted family areas, observed children from a distance, and waited for moments when he could isolate a child without drawing attention. The meticulous nature of his planning and his ability to blend into ordinary settings made him a particularly dangerous predator. For the Carter family, and for the community, the realization that someone could move undetected so close to innocent children was frightening. Despite the horror of what had been revealed, the outcome was miraculous. Lily's survival was a testament to her quick thinking and bravery, as well as the tireless efforts of law enforcement and community volunteers. The moment she was reunited with her parents became an image that would be remembered for years. A small girl clinging to her mother, tears streaming down their faces, while Daniel knelt beside them, overcome with relief and gratitude. The photograph that a local journalist captured of that reunion circulated through news outlets, a symbol of hope amidst the fear and uncertainty. In the following days, the Carters worked closely with counselors to help Lily process her experience. The trauma of nearly being abducted, coupled with the anxiety and fear of those days in the woods, required careful attention. Yet, even in her fear, Lily showed resilience. She described the way she had stayed quiet, the strategy of listening for other children, and how she had found small patches of sunlight to guide her way. Her courage and presence of mind had been crucial to her survival, and for the Carters, it became both a source of pride and a reminder of how fragile safety can be. Detective Shaw, reflecting on the case, noted that the combination of quick reporting, community involvement, and persistence had been key to finding Lily alive. Every tip, every volunteer search, and every careful analysis of evidence contributed to the outcome. The case became a study in how law enforcement, community vigilance, and instinctive survival skills intersect in critical moments. It also highlighted the terrifying reality that predators like Harlan could operate unnoticed, emphasizing the need for vigilance, awareness, and preparedness in public spaces. As Willow Creek Park slowly returned to its routine, changes were implemented to ensure safety. Surveillance cameras were installed near wooded trails, increased patrols were scheduled, and community workshops on child safety were launched. Parents were encouraged to educate their children about potential dangers without creating unnecessary fear. The story of Lily's disappearance and miraculous return became a powerful lesson for the town, a reminder of both vulnerability and resilience. For the Carters, life would never quite return to normal. Their daily routines, once casual and carefree, were now marked by vigilance. Family outings were approached with careful planning, and every park visit carried a mix of nostalgia and caution. Yet, in spite of the lingering fear, gratitude dominated. Lily was alive. She was safe. And the nightmare that had gripped their family for days had been brought to an end. Even in the darkest moments, the unthinkable truth had revealed something vital. Courage, instinct, and community could converge to save a life. Lily's story, though terrifying, was ultimately one of survival. It was a story that would be retold in the community, in schools, and through news outlets, ensuring that her ordeal became a lesson and a warning, but also a beacon of hope. And though the park would forever hold memories of fear and danger, it also became a place where the resilience of a small child and the determination of a community shone through. The unthinkable truth had been revealed. Lily had faced danger, had hidden in terror, and had survived. And in that survival, she had left an enduring mark on everyone who had searched for her, everyone who had hoped for her return, and everyone who had learned from the shadows of Willow Creek Park. The sun rose slowly over Willow Creek Park, casting a golden light over the trees, the grassy fields, and the trails that had witnessed the harrowing events of the past week. For the Carter family, the return of Lily had brought a sense of relief so profound it almost felt surreal. Yet, the days that followed were far from simple. The ordeal had left its mark, not just physically on Lily, but emotionally on every member of the family. Their lives had been shaken to the core, and the idyllic memory of a sunny picnic had been replaced with caution, vigilance, and lingering fear. Emma Carter found herself unable to walk through the house without glancing at the clock, the doors, or the windows, measuring the time that had passed since the search for her daughter had begun. Every sound, the creak of a floorboard, the rustle of leaves outside, the laughter of children on the street, triggered memories of that terrifying day. Her mind replayed it over and over, imagining all the what-ifs she could not have prevented. Yet, at the same time, every memory of Lily's return filled her with immense gratitude. Holding her daughter for the first time in those agonizing days, feeling her heartbeat, seeing the relief in her small eyes, it was a moment that could never be erased. Daniel, too, grappled with a mix of emotions. His protective instincts had been tested in ways he had never imagined. The thought that someone had watched, tracked, and attempted to abduct Lily filled him with rage, but it was tempered by relief that she had survived. He spent hours with the detectives, retracing timelines, reviewing maps, and discussing what had gone right and what could have gone differently. The experience left him more vigilant, more cautious, but also more appreciative of the fragility of life and the power of hope. In the days following Lily's return, counselors and child psychologists were brought in to help the family navigate the trauma. Lily, although remarkably resilient, struggled to articulate her feelings. The fear she had experienced in the woods, the knowledge that someone had intended to harm her, was difficult for a 6-year-old to process. She would sometimes wake in the night, calling out for her parents, frightened by shadows and unfamiliar sounds. Yet, in her innocence, she also demonstrated a profound instinct for survival, describing how she had hidden, listened, and waited for safety. Her courage became a focal point for the family, a reminder of her strength and the importance of vigilance. The community, too, had been transformed by the events at Willow Creek Park. Parents who once allowed their children to run freely through the park now walked alongside them, holding their hands, setting boundaries, and teaching them to recognize danger. Neighborhood watch groups were strengthened, volunteer patrols increased, and workshops on child safety became a regular feature in schools and community centers. The story of Lily's disappearance had become more than a news headline. It was a lesson, a warning, and a catalyst for change. Detective Karen Shaw, reflecting on the investigation, noted that the case highlighted the importance of community vigilance and rapid response. The fact that Lily had survived was due in no small part to the coordination between police, volunteers, and the young woman who had discovered her hiding place. Each piece of the puzzle, every tip, and every search effort had contributed to a successful outcome. It was a rare instance where fear and horror had been countered by determination, collaboration, and quick thinking. For the Carters, the lessons of that week were deeply personal. Every picnic, every park visit, and every public outing became an exercise in mindfulness and preparation. They installed locks, alarms, and tracking devices where appropriate, but they also learned the subtler art of teaching Lily how to be aware of her surroundings without instilling fear. The balance was delicate. They wanted her to enjoy the innocence of childhood, to play freely and explore, yet they also wanted her to understand that danger could exist, sometimes even where it seemed least likely. Emma found herself reflecting often on the invisible threads that had kept Lily safe. The instinctive decisions Lily had made in the woods, where to hide, how to stay quiet, how to seek safety, were remarkable for someone so young. Emma marveled at her daughter's intuition and courage, recognizing that these qualities, combined with the community's swift response, had saved her life. It was a powerful reminder that even in the face of danger, resilience and quick thinking could make all the difference. Daniel, meanwhile, became more vocal about the importance of preparedness and awareness. He spoke with local parents, organized safety workshops, and shared the story of Willow Creek Park with other families in the town. His message was clear. Vigilance does not mean living in fear, but it does mean taking proactive steps to protect the ones you love. He emphasized practical measures, like teaching children how to identify safe adults, recognizing suspicious behavior, and establishing clear plans for emergencies. His experience had shown that safety is a combination of knowledge, action, and instinct. The broader town also faced a reckoning. Willow Creek Park had been a symbol of community, a place where families gathered, children played, and neighbors interacted freely. The events surrounding Lily's disappearance shattered the illusion of complete safety, forcing adults and children alike to reconsider their assumptions. Town officials implemented permanent changes, surveillance cameras along forested trails, increased lighting, and regular patrols. Signage reminded visitors to stay aware of their surroundings, and local law enforcement coordinated closely with school districts to educate children about safety in public spaces. The park was no longer just a playground. It was a lesson in vigilance, awareness, and the importance of community engagement. Amidst these changes, the Carters sought to reclaim a sense of normalcy. They returned to the park slowly, starting with short visits during daylight hours. Lily ran ahead cautiously, her parents close behind, holding her hands when necessary. Each visit was measured, deliberate, and filled with new routines designed to balance safety and freedom. They brought friends along, played games, and gradually allowed Lily to explore, all while teaching her to recognize potential hazards and to trust her instincts. Over time, laughter returned, tentative at first but growing in confidence with each visit. Yet the shadow of the events lingered. Emma and Daniel could not forget the sense of fear that had gripped them during Lily's disappearance. The thought that Harlan had been so close to carrying out his plan was a constant reminder of how quickly danger could appear. They discussed what had happened frequently, processing their emotions, and teaching Lily how to understand her experience in a safe and supportive environment. Counseling sessions helped the entire family navigate the trauma, providing tools for managing fear and reinforcing resilience. The story of Lily's disappearance also resonated beyond the park. Media coverage highlighted the dangers of abduction, the importance of community vigilance, and the extraordinary courage of a child. Local schools incorporated discussions about safety and awareness, teaching children age-appropriate ways to respond to strangers, to seek help, and to stay aware of their surroundings. Parents and children engaged in conversations that were sometimes difficult, but necessary. The hope was that by sharing the lessons of Willow Creek Park, other families could avoid similar experiences. Detective Shaw reflected on the broader implications of the case. Harlan's methods, careful observation, blending into ordinary surroundings, and waiting for moments of opportunity, were chilling in their precision. She recognized that even in close-knit communities, predators could operate unnoticed, emphasizing the importance of vigilance, reporting suspicious behavior, and maintaining strong community ties. The combination of proactive policing, engaged citizens, and quick responses had saved Lily's life, underscoring the power of collective action in preventing tragedy. For Lily herself, the experience became a turning point. While she remained a playful and energetic child, she also developed a sense of awareness and caution beyond her years. She spoke often about the importance of listening to her instincts, asking for help when needed, and staying close to trusted adults. Her parents encouraged her to express her feelings, validating her fear while reinforcing her strength. Over time, Lily's confidence returned, tempered by an understanding of danger and the skills to navigate it safely. The Carters also found new ways to engage with their community. Emma organized a local support group for parents of young children, sharing strategies for safety, tips for awareness, and lessons from their experience. Daniel worked with neighborhood watch initiatives, encouraging families to look out for one another and to maintain strong communication channels. The tragedy had left its mark, but it also created opportunities for positive change, transforming fear into action and despair into community resilience. As the weeks turned into months, Willow Creek Park began to regain its sense of normalcy. Families returned, children played, and laughter once again filled the air. But beneath the surface, a new culture of vigilance had emerged. Parents watched closely, children were taught to recognize danger, and the community remained alight, remembering the events that had nearly claimed a life. The story of Lily Carter became a symbol, a reminder that safety requires attention, courage, and a willingness to act. In their private moments, Emma and Daniel reflected on the lessons learned. Life was fragile, unpredictable, and sometimes terrifying. Yet it was also filled with moments of joy, resilience, and hope. Lily's survival had been a miracle, a combination of instinct, community effort, and timely intervention. It had reinforced the importance of family, the power of vigilance, and the resilience of children. Each day since had been approached with a deeper appreciation for the small moments, the laughter, the sunlight, the freedom to explore, tempered by a clear understanding of the risks that existed in the world. The Carter story, once defined by fear and uncertainty, became one of strength, awareness, and survival. They had faced the unimaginable, navigated the shadows, and emerged with a renewed commitment to protecting their daughter and their community. Willow Creek Park, once the scene of terror, had become a place of education, remembrance, and cautious joy. The lessons of the picnic, the vulnerabilities, the dangers, and the miraculous survival would echo for years, shaping the way families approached public spaces, interacted with their children, and engaged with their community. And so, as Lily ran through the park, her laughter ringing through the trees once more, the Carters watched with careful eyes, hearts full of love and relief. The nightmare of those days remained a memory, a cautionary tale, and a testament to the power of hope. The lessons of the picnic were clear. Vigilance saves lives, courage matters, and even in the darkest moments, light and resilience can prevail. Life had changed irrevocably for the Carter family, but it had also reaffirmed something timeless, the enduring strength of love, community, and the human spirit.